Life lessons from the elderly. What every man over 60 needs to know about intimacy and health. There's something that almost no one ever taught us. No classroom ever addressed it. No father ever whispered advice about it. And even in the most intimate conversations among friends, it's often quietly left out. It's this: the way you experienced intimacy in your youth, hurried, impulsive, and often performance-driven, might be the very thing silently hurting you in older age. My name is Dr. James, a men's health specialist who has spent over 30 years walking alongside thousands of men in their 60s, 70s, and beyond. I'm not here to judge. I'm here to open a door to understanding, to connection, and most importantly, to healing. If you've ever wondered whether intimacy still matters after 60, if you've ever experienced a moment when your body didn't respond the way you hoped, if you've ever felt shame, disappointment, or even a sense of loss after an unsuccessful encounter, then I want you to know this: you are not alone, and you are not broken. Let me tell you about Harold. Harold was 72, a kind, soft-spoken gentleman, recently divorced after many years of marriage. When he met someone who stirred his heart again, he thought things would fall into place, just like before. But when the moment of intimacy came, his body didn't respond the way he expected. He panicked. She pulled back. And after that night, Harold never tried again. Not because he didn't want to, but because he believed he had failed, that his body had betrayed him. I've met many Harolds in my career, men carrying wounds that don't bleed, but hurt deeply. And the saddest part is, they rarely talk about it. They endure it. They stay silent. They withdraw. But what if I told you, intimacy doesn't end after 60? That closeness, connection, and even pleasure can still happen, and happen with more depth and beauty than ever, if you approach it with a different mindset. In this article, I'm going to share with you 5 powerful truths that most older men wish they had known sooner, and the quiet price they've paid for not knowing them. These aren't quick fixes or clever hacks. They're healing insights. They're deep lessons, and they're invitations to begin again, in a way that's more tender, more honest, and more aligned with the man you are today. And if you find value in this message, if something here resonates with you, I warmly invite you to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notifications. I share conversations like this every week for men like you, men who aren't afraid to look inward, to embrace change, and who still have so much left to feel, to love, and to live. Now, let's begin with the very first truth, something so seemingly small, yet quietly responsible for shattering the confidence, connection, and hearts of countless men over 60. Secret number 1, spontaneity is no longer your best friend. When we were young, we believed that sex just happened. It arrived quickly, powerfully, like a wave of instinct. No planning, no talking, just the right feeling at the right time, and the body would follow. And that was true at 25. But at 65, 70, or beyond, the body no longer works that way. And if you continue holding on to the belief that everything should still happen naturally like it used to, you may actually be putting the most pressure on yourself. I've seen so many men walk into my office, not with a wound you could see, but with something broken much deeper, their self-worth. They weren't sick. No one had hurt them, but their eyes avoided mine, and their voices softened as they described the last time they tried to be close to someone and failed. Not because they didn't love, but because their body didn't cooperate. And what happens next? They go silent. They begin to avoid intimacy. They pretend to be tired, pretend to be busy, pretend they don't care. And they slowly lose connection, not just with their partner, but with themselves. I remember a man named Gerald, 69, healthy, no significant medical conditions. After years of being alone, he met someone who made him feel alive again. They laughed, they shared, and they gradually became closer. Until one night when Gerald thought, everything will happen just like it used to. But it didn't. Nothing happened as he had hoped. His body didn't respond. He panicked. She grew uncomfortable. And then he stopped seeing her. Not because he didn't care, but because he was afraid. He said something I'll never forget. "Doctor, I felt like I lost a piece of my manhood that night. And that's a truth few men ever speak aloud. The expectation of spontaneity, that things should happen like they used to, is quietly choking connection. Sex after 60 is no longer a sprint. It's no longer about being ready on demand. It's a preparation, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And that very shift is what makes it richer, more genuine, and profoundly healing. Preparation isn't weakness. Planning isn't fake. Slowing down isn't failure. It's a message. I care about my body. I respect my partner. I want this moment to be real. Just 10 minutes of gentle breathing, relaxing the body, lightly massaging the lower abdomen, or simply having an honest conversation can change everything. When you remove the pressure to perform, you make space for something far more important: connection. And if you ignore this truth, it's not just emotional disappointment you risk. I've seen men land in the hospital because they rushed to prove themselves while their blood pressure was high, their heart vulnerable, or their medications working against them. Spontaneity is no longer your best friend. But that doesn't mean you've lost intimacy. In fact, when you learn to plan, to speak, to understand and listen to your body, you'll discover something even more powerful. Sex in older age may not be wild or explosive, but it can be deeper, more meaningful, and more real than ever before. Secret number 2, an erection is not just about sex. It's a signal from your heart. Many men over 60 think of intimacy as a private matter, something personal, discreet, best kept quiet, or quietly let go of when the body begins to change. But I'd like you to see it another way. Every time your erection isn't as strong as it used to be, it's not simply because you're older or you've lost desire. It might be your heart whispering for help. You see, an erection, at its core, is a vascular event. Blood must flow into the corpora cavernosa, maintain pressure, and sustain circulation. If blood doesn't reach that area, or can't stay there, then no matter how strong your desire, your body won't respond. And what does that really mean? It means the smallest blood vessels in your body, the ones in the penis, are struggling. And if blood is struggling to reach there, it might also be struggling to reach your heart, your brain, and other vital organs. I don't say this to alarm you. I say it because I've seen it hundreds of times over 30 years in men's health. I remember a patient named David. He was 67, still working, still playing tennis, still driving long distances. He seemed perfectly healthy. He came to me because recently, things weren't working quite like they used to. No pain, no other symptoms, just difficulty getting hard. "Maybe it's just age, doc," he said with a laugh. But I didn't laugh. I listened. I asked questions, and I recommended a heart exam. The result? His main coronary artery was 90% blocked, a ticking time bomb in his chest. Just a week later, David was rushed into emergency surgery. Afterward, he called me and said something I'll never forget. "Doctor, I thought I had a sexual problem. Turns out it was my heart about to give out." You see, when the blood vessels in the penis, the most delicate and responsive in the body, begin to clog, it's often the first warning sign that the cardiovascular system is declining. Your erection isn't just about pleasure, it's a red warning light for your entire body. The problem is, many men ignore that signal. They feel embarrassed. They blame age. They reach for pills without ever checking their health. And in trying to restore their manhood temporarily, they allow their heart to quietly weaken until there's no way back. What they don't realize is, difficulty getting or maintaining an erection can point to high blood pressure. Loss of desire may be linked to undiagnosed diabetes. An inability to stay firm may be the result of narrowing arteries clogged with cholesterol. And perhaps the saddest thing I've seen is marriages unraveling, couples growing distant, not because of age, but because a man was too afraid to speak up or too proud to get checked. You might think, "I'm probably fine. It's just a phase." But I'm here to tell you, don't wait until that phase becomes permanent. Let changes in your sexual function be an invitation, not to shame, but to awareness. Don't hide. Don't feel ashamed. Don't carry it alone. Go get checked. Ask your doctor. Run the tests. A heart screening today could save you 10 years of health and happiness. Because when you realize that an erection is a medical signal, not just a bedroom matter, you'll stop seeing it as something shameful, and you'll start seeing it for what it truly is, a chance to protect yourself and the partner who still wants to walk beside you in the years ahead. Secret number 3, intimacy is not just physical, it's emotional medicine. Over the past 30 years, I've sat with many men in their 70s, former CEOs, retired heads of households, men who once led companies and families alike, break down in tears as they whispered, "I haven't felt close to anyone in years." They weren't lacking money, they weren't lacking health, they weren't lacking family, but they were missing something vital: real connection with another human being. For a long time, they had stopped touching anyone, and no one had touched them, not because no one cared, but because they had closed the door to their own hearts. They believed intimacy was no longer appropriate at their age. They believed the desire to be close was something to be ashamed of, now that their hair was gray and their bodies had changed. But let me tell you something you may have forgotten. The longing to be touched, to be held, to be whispered to, is not a privilege of the young. It is a human instinct. It lives deep inside the human heart, whether you are 30 or 80. I once had a patient named Martin. He was 74. He came in not because he was in pain or because of any specific illness, but because he felt empty. He said to me, "I still eat, still sleep, still read the paper each morning, but nothing feels meaningful anymore." Martin had been living alone for 5 years since his wife passed. He believed that at his age, intimacy was no longer appropriate. He packed away those feelings, convinced it was the right thing to do. But the price he paid? Sleepless nights, unexplained high blood pressure, dreams filled with loneliness, and a heart slowly wilting from a lack of love's touch. I told Martin, and I want to tell you, something simple yet profound. Intimacy, whether with another or with yourself, is not just about pleasure. It is emotional medicine. It releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone. It soothes anxiety. It lowers blood pressure. It improves sleep. It reminds you that you are alive, that you still feel, that you still matter. And more than anything, it is a lifeline, a way to stay connected to the world around you. You don't need to be in a romantic relationship to feel close. You just need to give yourself permission to long for a hug, to seek a loving glance, to reach for a hand without shame. Sometimes it's enough to place your hand on your own body with gentleness and reverence, as if to say, "I see you, I'm still here with you." I know for many men, admitting a need for closeness feels difficult. We've been taught to be strong, to hold it in, to carry our pain in silence. But sometimes the greatest strength a man can show is not in hiding his loneliness, but in having the courage to face it and heal it. So if you feel distant from the world, if your heart feels cold, if you've told yourself, "I don't need intimacy anymore," then I invite you, just once, to ask your heart again, quietly, gently, deeply, because maybe what you've been missing isn't sex at all, but the touch that comes with love, the presence that comes with listening, the healing that comes with being held, without judgment and with gratitude. And if you can open your heart just a little to your partner or even to your own body, you may discover that intimacy in later life has not dried up. It's simply been waiting for you to return. Secret number 4, porn and unrealistic expectations quietly undermine the confidence of older men. There's something nearly every man has experienced, yet very few ever speak about. It's those quiet moments when you turn to adult videos, when you're feeling lonely, when there's no one beside you, or when you just want to feel a spark of the vitality you thought you had lost. I'm not here to judge that. As a doctor, I understand why it happens, because it's easy, it's quick, it's private, and it gives you the illusion that you're still feeling something. But behind that fleeting sensation lies a cost, one that most men never see coming until it's far too late. I'll never forget one of my patients. His name was Walter, 71, a retired Navy officer, a strong, steady man who had once commanded hundreds of others. But sitting across from me, he spoke slowly. I haven't touched my wife in 4 years. At first it was because I was tired. Then I just stopped feeling the desire. Instead, I just watched stuff online. Walter wasn't having an affair. He wasn't cold toward his wife. He had simply, quietly withdrawn from real connection, one little step at a time. At first, just a few videos a week. But over time, the perfect bodies, the intense scenes, the ageless performers began to reshape his expectations of his wife and of himself. He told me, her body isn't what it used to be. Her pace, her reactions, they're nothing like what I see online. I don't blame her, but I just don't feel excited anymore. Then I felt awkward. Then I said nothing. That's the heartbreaking reality so many older men face in silence. Because what you watch isn't just entertainment, it's rewiring your brain's pleasure system. Your brain, once tuned to subtle joy, begins to require fast, intense, repetitive stimulation. It becomes desensitized to the slower, more authentic forms of closeness. A soft touch, a loving gaze, a slow embrace. And worse than that, you begin to doubt yourself. You start asking, why don't I feel anything anymore? Why can't I be intimate unless I watch something first? Why am I not attracted to my partner like before? And from those doubts you withdraw. And from withdrawal comes distance. And from distance comes loneliness, misunderstanding, sometimes even separation. I've seen couples who had loved each other for decades grow apart, not because they stopped loving each other, but because the man lost his ability to respond to real connection and began living in a world of illusion. I'm not saying every older man must give up adult films entirely, but I am saying this. If you depend on it as a refuge, it will slowly turn you into a stranger to your own body and to the people who love you. Confidence doesn't come from what you see on a screen. It comes from being present with your real self in real moments with a real partner. If your mind has grown used to digital stimulation, pause, breathe, and listen to your body. It can still feel, it can still love, it can still be moved. You've just forgotten how to listen, but you can find your way back. If you choose truth over fantasy, if you choose the person beside you over the image on a screen, if you choose slow connection over instant excitement, and one day you'll realize, a real embrace, though imperfect, feels warmer than any image. A loving look, though lined with wrinkles, stirs you more than any video. And you, when you dare to show up fully and honestly, are more attractive, more powerful, and more alive than you ever were at 30. Secret number 5, the most dangerous time to have sex is when you're trying to prove something. There's a moment many older men have experienced, a moment when they feel they've still got it, still able to stir someone's heart, still strong enough to try again like the old days. Maybe it's after a successful date, or after a compliment from a woman they just met, or perhaps following a positive checkup that leaves them feeling youthful again. And in that moment of excitement, they think, I need to prove it, not just to someone else, but to themselves. They want to relive that feeling of strength, initiative, passion, just like before. But that's also the moment when many have risked their lives without even realizing it. I've met countless patients in this very situation. Some were successful businessmen, some were retired professors. All were men who had once been strong and capable. And they shared one thing in common. They didn't want to be seen as weak or old. They wanted to prove that they were still men. One case I'll never forget was Leonard, 74 years old, a smart, polite man, still playing golf weekly, dating a woman nearly 20 years younger. One day he came to see me and joked, "Doc, I have to keep up. Got to make sure she's still happy." I warned him, gently, that his heart wasn't what it used to be, that sex at his age is more like high-intensity exercise, something that requires preparation and care, that if he wanted to use performance enhancers, he must go through his doctor. He nodded, smiled, and said, "Don't worry. I know my limits." 2 weeks later, I got the call. He had passed away in a hotel room. The woman he was with had called for help, but by the time the ambulance arrived, his heart had already stopped. A heart attack, brought on after trying to make an impression during an unprepared night of intimacy. I don't share this story to scare you. I share it so you understand. Sex after 60 is no longer just a physical act. It's a challenge, one that involves your entire body. During intimacy, your heart rate increases, your blood pressure rises, blood vessels dilate, you breathe deeper, muscles contract. It's a full-body workout, just like exercise. And if you have heart disease, diabetes, or high blood pressure, and you aren't aware or prepared, the consequences can be devastating. I've spoken with women who lost their partners in these very moments. They didn't blame their husbands, but in their eyes there was deep regret. If only he had listened to his body, if only he hadn't tried to prove something. And that's the most painful part. Many men don't die because of sex. They die because of pride, because of the refusal to admit that their body has changed. So let me say this with all the respect you deserve. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Not to your wife, not to a partner, not to the youth that has long passed. You have fought battles, made sacrifices, weathered storms. Your worth is not measured by muscle or stamina. It's in how deeply you love yourself, enough to live longer, not recklessly fade away. After 60, intimacy is no longer a performance. It's a sacred ritual, slow, deliberate, filled with care and safety. It's no longer about climaxing. It's about being present deeply with the person you love. It's no longer about racing ahead. It's about breathing together, touching with understanding, moving in trust. So if you ever feel the urge to prove something, pause, take a breath. Ask yourself, am I doing this out of love or out of fear? Because the difference between those two could be your life. If you've read this far, I believe one thing. You're not just searching for answers about sexual health. You're seeking reconnection, not only with your partner, but with yourself. Because the greatest loss a man can experience after 60 isn't about physical decline. It's not that intimacy becomes more difficult. It's the quiet ache of feeling like you're no longer yourself. In all my years as a doctor, what breaks my heart most isn't the lab results. It's the tired eyes, the heavy sighs of men who once carried the world on their shoulders. Now sitting in front of me, asking in a quiet voice, "Doctor, am I still normal?" And the answer is always, yes, you are still normal. You are still that man. Your body is simply asking to be approached in a new way, with understanding, with respect, with a gentleness you may have never given it before. We've walked through 5 essential truths, the kind of things every man should have been told long ago. That sex after 60 isn't spontaneous, it's intentional, wise, and loving. That changes in erections aren't just about desire, they're vital signs of your heart and overall health. That emotional presence and tenderness aren't weakness, they are powerful medicine for the soul. That overexposure to adult content can quietly dull your ability to connect and feel. And finally, that trying to prove you're still the man you once were can sometimes be the most dangerous choice of all. But do you know what gives me the most hope? It's this. You're still here. You're still reading. You haven't given up. And that, to me, is the most courageous beginning. You can't rewind time, but starting today, you can choose to live differently, to slow down and feel, to listen to your body, your heart, and your partner, to live not to prove, but to love, to stop racing with your past and start going deeper into who you are now. You don't need to be a 30-year-old man to be a man. You only need to live with the maturity, compassion, and sensitivity that life has already shaped in you. And the beautiful truth is, intimacy, emotion, and connection at this age can be deeper, richer, more meaningful, if you allow yourself to let go of old expectations and embrace who you are today. So I want to leave you with this. You have never lost your ability to love. You simply need a new path to rediscover it, one that honors your age, your body, and your soul. If this message touched you, even just a little, let me know. Drop a 1 in the comments if you're still here, still open, still ready to learn, connect, and live fully. And if you'd like to keep receiving honest, heartfelt reflections like this, Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell, because you deserve to be loved, to be understood, and to live the years ahead with pride and tenderness toward yourself.